All right, today we're talking about something huge in medical science. We're going to look at how researchers are basically hacking the system, using powerful computer simulations to fight a deadly disease that's been in the shadows for way too long. Let's get right into it. 8 million. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's how many people around the globe are living with a parasite that can just quietly, slowly destroy their health from the inside. And look, this isn't some new threat that just popped up. It's a crisis that's been going on for years, just waiting for a real breakthrough. For decades, finding new medicines has been like trying to solve a massive, complicated maze in the dark. It's this agonizing process of trial and error that costs billions of dollars and can easily take a decade or more just to get one single new drug. But that brings up a really exciting question, right? What if we could ditch the maze entirely? What if a computer could just shine a bright light and show us the shortcut straight to the cure? Okay, so to really get why this new approach is such a game changer, we first need to understand the enemy it's designed to fight. And that's a devastating illness called Chagas disease. So what is it? Well, at its core, Chagas is caused by a tiny parasite. It's this microscopic organism that gets into your body, and if you don't treat it, it can lead to some really, really terrible consequences down the line. And the scale of this thing is just staggering. While it's most common in Latin America, we're talking about 100 million people at risk around the world. See, in the early stages, it's actually curable. But the scary part is, if it goes untreated, it becomes chronic. And over years, it can cause irreversible damage to your heart, to your digestive system. It's a true silent killer. So you have to ask, right? If it's so dangerous, why on earth is it called a neglected disease? Well, the tough reality is it really comes down to economics. Because Chagas mostly affects people in lower income communities, there just hasn't been a big financial incentive for drug companies to pour in the billions needed to find new cures. And that economic problem runs headfirst into the biggest roadblock of them all. You could even call it the villain of our story, the old school, painfully slow, and broken system for discovering new medicines. Just think about the old way of doing things. It's all trial and error. You have scientists in a lab testing thousands upon thousands of different chemical compounds, just hoping, literally hoping, that they stumble across one that works. It's incredibly slow, unbelievably expensive, and frankly, it relies almost as much on pure luck as it does on science. And for a disease like Chagas, this system is pretty much a dead end. When there isn't a huge potential for profit at the end of that long, expensive maze, the high cost and the high risk mean that millions of vulnerable people just get left behind. It's that simple. But this is where the story takes a really exciting turn, because a new hero is entering the picture. A totally revolutionary approach called computational chemistry, and it changes the entire game. So what in the world is computational chemistry? Well, in simple terms, it's using supercomputers to build and test digital versions of drug molecules. So instead of physically mixing chemicals in a beaker, you're running complex simulations on a screen to see how they're going to behave. Seriously, you can think of it like having a crystal ball for chemistry. This lets scientists accurately predict what's going to happen in these really complex chemical reactions. They can see which ideas are going to work and, maybe even more importantly, which ones are going to fail, all without spending months of time and millions of dollars on real-world experiments. So, that's the big idea. But how does it actually work in practice? Well, researchers over at the University of Kent took this concept and built a very specific, repeatable protocol designed to go after Chagas disease. So here are the key ingredients they put together. They started with a type of compound called naphthoquinones, which they already knew had some activity against the Chagas parasite. Then, they brought in a molecular editing tool, a special catalyst to modify that compound. But the secret sauce, the real breakthrough, was finding the perfect simulation method. They tested 9 different ways of doing it to find the one that hit that sweet spot between being super accurate and super fast. And this created a much, much smarter process. First, you model the promising drug compounds on a computer. Then, you simulate making little chemical edits to predict which changes will be the most effective. After that, you can screen thousands of these virtual variations, incredibly fast. And that lets you prioritize, so you only take the absolute best of the best candidates and move those into an actual lab for testing. And what's the outcome of all this? Well, it's a total transformation. You're no longer wandering around lost in that dark maze. You're using a precise digital map to walk straight to the most promising solutions. It's faster, it's cheaper, and it's so much more targeted. So let's zoom out for a second. What does all this mean for the bigger picture? Because this isn't just about Chagas. This is about creating a whole new blueprint for how we discover medicines for, well, for everything. The lead author of the study, Dr. Fantuzzi, put it perfectly. He said this tech doesn't replace experiments, but it helps focus experimental effort where it is most likely to be productive. I mean, that's it right there. It's not about making scientists obsolete. It's about making them more powerful, letting them focus their precious time and money only on the experiments with the highest chance of success. And get this, it gets even more powerful when you pair it with AI. Think about it. Computational chemistry uses physics to explain how a reaction works. AI is brilliant at looking at huge amounts of data to predict what to try next. You put those two together, you have an absolute dream team for medical discovery. It's also really important to know that this isn't just happening in some isolated lab. This work is part of something called the Nubian Project. It's this incredible global team-up of scientists from the UK, Brazil, and Sierra Leone, all working together to tackle these neglected diseases and help some of the world's most vulnerable communities. And that kind of leaves us with one final powerful thought. If we can use this computational shortcut to speed up the fight against Chagas disease, what's next? You know, how many other forgotten diseases affecting millions and millions more people are suddenly within our reach thanks to this new map?